Muy bien, respetando el tiempo.
Very well, respecting everybody's time. We give you a good, we say good evening officially to tonight's session. My name is Solimar Salas. I'm the Vice President of Museum Content and Programming at the Museum of Latin American Art. And I hope that you're staying safe and healthy this evening. I recognize that I live and work on the traditional and sacred lands of Tongva, Kij, Achaman, and Chumash, and the many other indigenous groups who call these grounds home. I honor and extend my gratitude to all of the original people still living in this region. Thank you for joining us as we kick off GRIT, generating radical inclusion and transformation. This series of conversations explores how grit, an attribute often given to people who overcome obstacles, can serve as a tool to build agency. With a specific focus on creative expression, GRIT seeks to expand what it means to practice art for social change. Support for the interpretive programming at Museum of Latin American Art is provided by the Dwight Stewart Youth Fund, Southern California Edison, Arts Council for Long Beach, Robert Gumniber Foundation, and City of Long Beach. Today's conversation is facilitated by host Griselda Suárez. She is a writer, artist, cook, and a teacher. She was born in East LA and walked Whittier Boulevard and Brooklyn Avenue in black and white saddle shoes. She grew up in a place where her thoughts did not easily find voice. Instead, she found pen and paper. Her hometown inspires her to investigate memories of a home space that continues to be bodiless. She believes that the arts are essential in empowering others to express their thoughts. Throughout her career, she has created programming and trainings dedicated to facilitating transformation and creating agency for her communities. The recorded live interpretation via video and audio that we have this evening, including any interpretation via an audio and video channel, are intended to facilitate communication and do not constitute an authentic record of the event. Remember to drop any questions into the Q&A window or the chat function at the bottom of your screen. I will be monitoring time and answering any questions during the tour, and we will leave time at the end for questions as well. Welcome everyone once again, and I leave you with Griselda Suárez. Thank you very much, Solimar, for all of the support this evening. I would like to thank Mola for the invitation of this evening and for supporting my creative efforts. We need organizational investments like what the museum is doing now in order to advance communication in art and culture. For the sponsors of this evening, I would like to say that I sincerely thank you for being able to give us the opportunity to talk this evening amongst colleagues and amongst friends. I would also like to thank my family who might be in the audience this evening. We are soon coming to Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. And also to my brother and to my partner who are always present in supporting these creative efforts. Recently, more than 4 years ago, I had surgery for cancer. And while I was recovering in the hospital room and I would wake up from anesthesia, I saw some words approaching me. And that word comes from a very deep place, I imagine. And I saw the word arts or art. And ever since then, I have worked to have conversations regarding art as a social strength, as a tool, a cultural tool within my work and within my personal life. The idea of grit, or what I say in Spanish, grit ganas, is born from years of perseverance within me. The from the desire, the work, from my family, and years of working in the academy as well, in my professional career at the university, and also, years in having to recover my body as well. And so in this discussion, in the first GRIT discussion, I remember an event that we had with the Arts Council, where I got to the word, or the combination of words, radical inclusion. Art and culture can be used to empower and to elevate communities that might feel disconnected from their homeland, or also from the government from where they live. My preferred way of art, and my favorite, and the one I practice, is writing. I learned a lot from writers who spoke to me directly about my experience. Then I created essays. I created stories based on my experience, my family's experience, my friends, my hood. And those thoughts, I think, came up, regarding philosophy, what I learned, oppression, but also the beauty of my hood. And, then I started inspiring other students to also go into writing, to also create their stories. And now at this time, we're in a place, we're in the country, artists, people of color are producing more cultural content than ever. And I don't think it's a coincidence that also at this time we're living through a dramatic change in our country. And, and we are involved in a political power. And finally, I would like to say once again, thank you to Mola for giving me the opportunity to bring a friend, a colleague this evening in the first initiation of GRIT, Lorena Moran. Lorena is the director of theatrical projects, and she is from Guatemala, and she came to the United States 14 years ago. And she has lived and worked in the cities of Long Beach and Los Angeles. And in those ways, I also grew up in Los Angeles, and now I live in Long Beach. And during those 14 years, she's worked as a day laborer and a domestic employee. Lorena has lived through and seen oppression of day laborers in the United States. And due to this, she made the decision to do something, to take action. She discovered theater as also an educational tool that allows to show the reality of day laborers' lives and also domestic work. And Lorena, she and I met about 5 years ago at her job. And with the Day Laborers Theater, she has made many changes in the last 4 years. Her leadership carried out transnational projects with youth in El Salvador and in Guatemala. She shares her artistic abilities with other organizations during her time in LA County. And it's my pleasure to welcome Lorena this evening. And before starting the discussion, Lorena, a very warm welcome to you. Now, I wanted to show the audience a video, a short video regarding what happened this weekend. It says justice to immigrants now.
Entonces,
And
Lorena, bienvenida.
so, Lorena, welcome. And please share more details regarding May 1st, the May 1st event. How was that community action? Thank you very much, Griselda. Good evening, good night. Thank you, Griselda, for the invitation this evening to be part of this discussion. I also appreciate the Museum of Art, which is in my neighborhood, in my city, Mola, and each of the sponsors who invited us as well to be part of this and who supports us, the artists or workers around art. Thank you very much. Um, this idea came about from years of work with from discussions with friends and personal experiences of going through a pandemic outside of theatrical spaces, closed up, far from that energy that moves us for those of us who feel passion for theater and for scenic arts. And well, through the theater jornalero, we had a convocation. We had friends, artists, colleagues from the city of LA to be able to unite and to be able to create a collective of artists, of united artists, Angelinos, for causes for justice, social justice, justice for immigrants. And in this creation, this collective creation, we are uh, requesting justice for the children who are uh, jailed without committing any type of crime in each of the borders between the United States and Mexico. And we are demanding that these children go to a shelter directly and for them not to be jailed up or imprisoned because they are not adults and they are being judged or tried as adults and even worse as animals. That's where this first collective creation came about, this first action. We hope that it's not the last in which we unite and come together. And we're sure that there will be more causes, more activities in which we will continue supporting our immigrant community or any other community that requires our support, because we are sure that the arts in general, it's the best tool to be able to transform realities, and even more if they're because of unjust or unfairness.
Gracias, Lorena. Yo creo que
Thank you, Lorena. I think that Saturday you could have seen, you could see it in the video in from downtown LA, the power that the Latino community has when they unite, and we can fight the injustices occurring currently, right? And a lot of your work, a lot of what you do with the Teatro Jornalero or the theater is to fight the injustice and give the opportunity to have a voice in a foreign country. And so we need to start, let's start with the basics so that our audience understands regarding the person that you work with. Who are the laborers? Um, it's been believed that the labor, the stereotype is an individual or human being without there are people that work in the fields but we're called laborers or day laborers within this great city. All of us who have worked or work in the area of construction, those of us who work day laboring through days in construction jobs and building homes, buildings, anything around construction. Normally, you can see people who are waiting for a job at the corners for day laborers that are found at the stores where they sell materials for that type of work, like Home Depot or the paint stores, because we also include the builders, painters, gardeners as people who are denominated or named as day laborers who work jobs on a daily basis. How did you get to a day labor center here in Los Angeles or Long Beach for the first time? How did you find that group of people? That's an interesting story because within my 1,001 jobs that I've had in this country, that sometimes I don't even believe it, I think that it was the best that could have happened to me, to get to a corner where there were more than 800 men, just men, and there were only two women, two of us. And at that time, I remember that I went to a location where people look for jobs, people who are immigrants or people without jobs. At that time, it was called the Shalom Center. I think it was on the 21st and Long Beach Boulevard. And lovingly, the director of the Shalom Center addressed me and directed me to a person who coordinated jobs at this day labor center, which was located in Signal Hill. And for me, everything was Long Beach. I didn't know that there was another city within the city. It was Long Beach to me. And the following day, I was excited that I had a job, but I never imagined that, or that I had been sent to look for a job in the middle of a labor center with more than 800 men, and only the person who was signing in the workers that were arriving, because we were raffling. Every job was raffled, and by numbers that we were included in the raffle, and then they would send us to the jobs. And so that was the biggest fortune that occurred when I came to this country, because I was able to experience situations around being an immigrant with some education in my country of origin, with a basic university educational level, and to arrive at a day labor center where my best tool were my hands, beyond the technical knowledge that I may have had from the formal education that I received. And I learned there to value humanity even more, to respect immigrants. I learned that human beings are not human beings because of their knowledge, but because of their humanity in general, because of the respect that we deserve. And, between tears and thoughts and happiness, I would do my jobs or assign tasks as a painter's assistant, gardener, cleaning houses. But I was happy because I was working and I had the option to be able to earn money on a daily basis and to send to my family, to my children at that time, my country of origin. And that's how I connected directly to the day laborers community. And I will even say that proudly, I represent my community. I tell my story and not other stories. And, my husband now, with lots of respect and dignity, he continues working in construction, and he's a day laborer. I also come from a day laborers family, family of day laborers, and it's a sense of work that, as a person, a first generation, a daughter of immigrant parents, that you carry with you to to the jobs that I have, my office, like academia, university, that grain of being able to and continue, to having work, that always is instilled in me, right? And thank you and for giving us this time and for opening up your heart. We talked before about having this presentation last night, and you said that you would come with an open heart, and 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 theater for you, is that right? That theater is a way to open hearts. And tell me a little bit, tell us about how do you use theater to transform challenges, oppression, or the opportunities, the beauty, the laughter, the happiness of the day laborers at those centers to a cultural expression? How do you do that? Well, before that, I would like to share that the Day Laborers Theater, we are day laborers, and part of our mission is to improve the lives of all of our day laborers, all of the colleagues, and by creating theater with day laborers for our day labor community, and because due to our day labor community being one of the strongest in the city of LA. And I would even say that when we started this project in the year 2010, I'm sorry, 2008, um, we were about 25,000 day laborers in the city of Los Angeles. I don't have the exact statistics of how many we are, but we're possibly more than 35,000 day laborers. Yeah. And the most interesting thing is that we use our voice, our image, our stories to transform our realities. Why? Because when you take a medication and it cures you and it's effective in your body and your life, with a lot of faith, you will recommend it to others. We know that the other people's body is different because it's a different organism, but however, we are sure that it'll help them. And in this case, art, for me, it was like something magical, because when I incorporated to the theater, which was just being created, I had been here for only a few months, and I remember that it was in this country, which was far from my living children. I had even had thoughts of disappearing. I had thoughts that it's not worth, continuing keeping them in my mind anymore. Art came and the theater workshops came, and every night after working, I remember that at that time, my husband was my friend at that time, and we would run and all with dust, getting the Long Beach train to be able to go to downtown LA. And then from there, where the train would leave us, we would have to run to Alameda, and we would look for the theater Cornerstone. Why? Because the theater Cornerstone became for us like that space where where our most intimate desires would come about, where we would also forget reality. We would get there and laugh like children, and we would play, have fun. And that's where I discovered that it was the best medication to help me overcome my emotional state of depression, because of how far I was from my children, and which I could have easily been lost in any vice. But I think in the end, I've been able to float and have that exact point of balance, and knowing that I have a responsibility with myself and for my community, and that every day I need to think, oh, I have this activity with Teatro Jornalero, or I have to do this other thing with Teatro Jornalero. So it's like that exact point of balance that I was able to reach through the theatrical arts. And that's where my passion uh, comes from, and that I try to spread it to anyone around me, that if we love and what we do, then I'm sure that it will transform us for the better.
¿Cuáles son unas de las producciones
What are some of the productions that you've done with the theater? We've one of the most recent ones was in the year 2018, in the summer of the year 2018, at the Autry Museum, which was called Historias del Río, or Stories of the River, which precisely talked about the stories of people who cross the river, who come, who have left family behind, and regarding the connection to the water, the river, the Los Angeles River, the river that you cross from Mexico into the United States and at the border. And we united many of those stories through the participants and the day laborers community and immigrants in general, and where we opened up a little more, and we were more inclusive. Is that the word? Or or just day laborers, not just day laborers or housekeepers. We opened it up so that immigrants in general would unite, and through those stories, all of these stories were taken, and colleague Cesar Ortega, who participates a lot in Teatro Jornalero, who takes the role of artistic director or writer because he loves writing. He wrote precisely the stories of the river, and children also participated. We had the blessing of an immigrant girl who came to this country and did not have any family members. One of the first girls that immigrated without family to this country from Honduras, fleeing really bad gangs, and she came to this country alone. And with barely being 12 years old, she did not have not one family member. And we were lucky that the person who was responsible, who was her foster mom, authorized and requested the authorizations of the system so that she could be part of this as well. And I observed, how that girl had a smile, but it was so big, so beautiful. In every presentation, every practice, she would have fun. She would converse with us, and I'm sure that our objective was accomplished, our mission to transform the lives of each person that participates in each of our projects, and not to see it as the best theatrical piece. That's not my objective. That's not Teatro Jornalero's mission. The mission is uh, part of that transformation, and to bring the space so that people can play, have fun, and to completely change this in imagination or suffering through the scenic theater arts. And that production was for the festival of the current LA, I think. No. Oh, it was another one. In current LA was in the summer of 2017. Okay, so current LA in 17, G.R.I.T Museum in 2000. Yes, exactly. Oh, I think that it was 2018. Oh, it's, this pandemic, I tell my friends, like, it's affected me. Fortunately, I haven't had the virus, but it has erased dates from my mind. You're not alone in that, a lot has gone from me. But we do have a question from a participant that we have here tonight. There was a time, maybe was there a time where you wanted to give up, right? Like because of a lot of stress, or maybe because of things that obstacles, one after another. What did you do at that time? How did you overcome that? And also, the Jornalero Theater, Yeah, I want to mention that it's very difficult to overcome or to, have your hat on of a leader or to consider yourself like a colleague would compare me with whom I participated in the last collective would say it's because I see you as my mother, like that mom who is concerned that's running and come and go, and that role, when we assume that role of being like that, a person who is guiding everyone or that is pulling everyone, and, and that I've experienced that beyond a responsibility, it's a commitment with my people, with the people who have believed in me, with people who have come to the Jornalero Theater, But with a person, if a person comes to me and says, Lorena, I want to be part of the group, may I participate? With that person, for that person to be part of that group, I commit, I commit so that I don't throw in the towel easily. And during those difficult times, it comes to mind how theater has helped me to overcome my states of depression or of anxiety or of feeling marginalized or of not feeling comfortable far from my children. And then I go to a practice or then I have a meeting and swear, I think if this is helping me, how can I give up? How can I fail those who have believed in me? And then that's where I take in air again and move forward. And that's what happened to us with this first collective action that we created with my colleagues, with my friends, where several of us for many months were inactive. And then that's where I said something needs to happen, something needs to occur, and I shared through the day laborers theater, and I talked to somebody and then somebody else, and well, the information was spread, and we were all together. And during those difficult times, feeling that energy of power, of encouragement, of happiness is what lifts me again to continue. It's commitment.
Sí, el compromiso
And the commitment
es igual al compromiso del
is
trabajo.
similar
El
to
trabajo
the commitment
es
at work,
realmente
even
uno
the work,
dedicar
whether it's a
lo
casting
que
or,
es el arte
the
en
art,
general.
the
Y
theater,
de muchas maneras
and
está
in many
esta
ways, it's
de
also theater art at work. Everybody has their
que
own
sean
role, right?
físicos,
We have
tratar de
to
mucha
do certain
manera
things, act certain
como
ways as laborers, as immigrants, as people of
tenemos
first generation. We
un rol
have
ahí y
a
pues
role,
esa
and
conexión es
that's how I see the
es lo
connection,
que hace
with the work that you do with day laborers
después
that could
por,
possibly,
por lo
that
largo
could
que sea el proyecto,
perhaps, however long the project might be,
probablemente en
to
algún
have
momento
something
vamos
different
a
where
actualizar
they can
todas las
start
ideas que
to
van
realize all the
a
ideas that they have throughout the day when they're
su
working
trabajo, ¿no?
at work. All right, correct.
Y en
And
Guatemala
in
realmente
Guatemala, did you have a connection to theater as well, or you came to LA and Long Beach and it was born here, or how did that happen? That was funny because the biggest connection to art was with my mother, because my mother, the memory I have of seeing myself at 5, 6 years of age, my mom always worked in health as a nurse, as an instructor, but oh, I'm sorry, with instruments for surgery, and she really loved working at night, or or through the afternoon to be able to go to school. And she really loved literature, And she would tell me about like Lope de Vega, Daisy de las Niñas, Miss Barbara. But I was really small, and she would tell me, and she would say, "Honey, don't fall asleep. You're gonna miss the best part of." And these were works like La Cerillo de Tormes, and I'm telling you about literature that she would tell me about more than 40 years ago or even more. And I still remember that my mom always loved to be connected to theater. And it was the only connection that I had in my memory as far as theater. And I think that when I came here, and when the best of accidents occurred, as an accident that I came to be linked to the theater and also the Cornerstone Theater, which is my connection and participation generated. That's the best thing that could have happened to me, because I was telling my colleagues that we met through that area, but we never had the opportunity to connect and to know what we actually do or who we are. And I was participating, and I was telling them that I haven't had, the formal theater education, but I have had a rich experience of working next to incredible artists and directors, um, professionals in audio, video. That for me is something like an intense study in just in the 14 years and the 13 years that I've had, in which I think now I have a master's uh, how or a PhD on how the scenic arts transform people's lives, and it recreates those scenes on a daily basis, and you see it as from a different perspective, beyond feeling as one of more of the millions of people who are excluded from this society. But that's where the scenic arts come in to transform us, and it allows us and gives us a life uh, that is associated and feeling like a member of community of arts and actors in the city of Los Angeles. And here in Long Beach, has it been easy, difficult to also connect with the scenic arts, or is it different in Long Beach? How do you see the difference between the cities? I think that here in Long Beach, people are very friendly. The artists, they are collaborators, they support. I think that the detail has been more in me because my strong connections in work, my colleagues are in Los Angeles. And I appreciate, Griselda, because you have always opened up your doors. You have supported us. You've allowed us spaces to present here in Long Beach. And we've been very well received. There have always been critical eyes and, constructive criticism as well. But as I always tell my colleagues, it's because we are authentic, and there is the difference. We are pure gold because, your story is not written. Nobody is telling your story. You are the protagonist. And we all come empowered, and we say, I will still steal the Grammy this evening. And we've done it. We have felt it. We will present in a space. When I had recently met Griselda, I think it was Kurt. No, what was that? The presentation called where it used to be a bookstore on Long Beach, and on Long Beach and Broadway, Long Beach and Third. That's right. Um, Acres of books. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Acres of books on Third and Long Beach. That's right. That was the production of the National Endowment. That's right. All right. You know, my mind is failing me, relatively speaking. But well, we observe we observe many people watching, and but many people would approach us, they would welcome us, and they would ask us about our community or our stories. They would think that we would share and have the strength to share our presentations. And well, you know, we don't pretend to be perfect. We seek in a respectful manner to learn more, to be more aware, and to respect the society, and also to advocate for our rights and for the justice that we need in our community.
Muy bien.
Very well. I had another question for you, but I loved more the one that came in the chat through the audience. Um,
Hay varias preguntas.
there are
Una
several
es
questions.
si las
One, if
presentaciones, si es
the
de acuerdo a
presentations
las
that
categorías,
the Jornalero Theater does, is it for all ages?
si,
And also,
si trabajas con varias edades,
if you work with all
cómo
age or
reaccionan
several
a
ages, like
la
how does the
historia
audience react with the stories presented,
y si podrías
or to the
hablar
stories? And if you
exactamente de
could
una situación
perhaps share an anecdote that you might remember that was impactful
que
for you
sigue
and
impactándote.
that continues having an impact on you. Um, the first time that we had the opportunity to include or to invite children as artists between the ages of 12 and 16 years of age, you know, teenagers and children, um, we saw the need in our group of sharing these stories, that these stories, you know, that's why it was called Stories of the River. That's what this is called, this piece, that this story should not just be kept with the adults, that the love that we feel for our culture, for our roots, and we should transmit them to new generations. And therefore, we made the decision, those of us who participated in that project, to include youth and children because we see the need of sharing. And we saw that it was like the perfect chemical or chemistry, excuse me, how these youth and children meshed really well in our story, and they identified themselves, and we thought that maybe because some of them were born here, that they might feel it differently, but no, because we had historical circles, and because we had dynamics in which we would share our experiences. And something that was impactful was a young girl, I'm not going to mention her name, but she said at the end of that rehearsal, she said it with tears, that her father was a day laborer, and that until that time in which she participated in the group, she learned to understand him more, to respect him, and to value his work more. And she said it with many tears because she did not understand what work her father would do. And for me, it was like, and you know, I'll say again, you know, it was beyond getting the best acting. It was like reaching or achieving the objective of Teatro Jornalero, because we know, and I'm sure that this young girl who's in college now, and she's an excellent student, uh, she will always appreciate and respect, and she will honor her father's work.
Ay, entonces, qué bonito.
And so, what a beautiful story to be able to take this in your heart and keep this in your
Sí,
heart.
las
And
presentaciones
the
siempre
presentations, they're for families. Everyone's welcome to your productions, to your
excepto
presentations, right?
son temas
Unless they are strong themes or strong dialogue that, with the writer or with the project
no
director
podemos
will
presentar a
decide
la audiencia
that we cannot present it to a general audience.
procuramos de no
We
utilizar
try
lenguaje
not to
inapropiado,
use inappropriate language,
pero nuestro
but
español es
our
muy rico
Spanish is so rich,
y hay
and at some
culturas
in some cultures,
que si son de El
um,
Salvador,
if
de
people are from El
México,
Salvador,
uno nunca
Mexico,
puede
a word it can
ofender
mean different
y
things,
se puede
and
ofender
we
alguna
could
otra
offend another person
procesos
even more if they're
educativos.
children. So that's why we're
Sí, hay que
a
cuidar
little
eso,
careful,
si
and
va a estar
we
dirigido al público en
observe
general.
whether it'll be a general audience, all ages, or exclusively for adults.
Y yo te he
And
visitado en uno de
I
tus
have visited you in one of your workshops
workshops
when
cuando
you
trabajabas
worked
con
with the
familias
laborers, with the day laborers.
y en esos momentos
And
veo que
during those
estás
times, I see
trabajando
that
con el director
you're working with the director.
con
Everyone's he has
tiene
the
su
direction,
rol.
and they have their roles. But how do the stories come about? In other words, and there are people in the audience who would like to know, when you're working with the laborers.
Tipo
Um,
de teatro tiene
are there concerns or doubts regarding
historias
sharing their
y
stories, or do they come with their open heart? Tell me about the process. Tell us about the process. How does that work?
en ocasiones,
At times,
bueno, tiene
well, we
que
always
hacerlo
address our stories with lots of respect. Why?
son
Because
historias reales.
those are real
Son historias
stories.
que para nosotros
These
son
are
lo más
stories that for
sencillo,
me could be the
pero para
simplest
el
thing,
otro
but
que la
for
vive
the individual that lived through it, it could
sana.
be something traumatizing.
Procuramos
And we
todos los
try, or I always try.
mi rol sería
My role is
producir,
more of production,
ir alrededor de todo el
or
proyecto
to
y procurar crear un espacio
go around the
seguro
whole project and to
para
create a
cada uno de
safe,
los
comfortable space for
participantes
each
y
participant,
brindarles siempre
and
las mejores
to always
herramientas
have
y
the supportive
siempre
professional people. I always
con graduados
invite
universitarios
artistic directors
que
who have graduated
tienen
from universities, who
experiencia
have
en teatro,
experience
en profesionalismo
with addressing others
y
professionally,
en el
for
caso
our
de mi
colleagues.
compañero
And
César
in the
Ortega,
case of my colleague Cesar
él
Ortega,
trataba ciertos
in
puntos muy
the
respetuosamente
he addressed
iba
very
manejando
respectfully the
las
historical
dinámicas
stories,
con
um,
preguntas para
and
que las
by
personas
asking
no sean
questions
forzadas,
where
los
people who
compañeros
are not
puedan
forced,
participar con toda la
but they
historia o
can
fragmentos
participate or and
de sus
share a
experiencias
whole story or
educativas
fragments of their
o el
stories,
fragmento de una
or
experiencia
fragments of a
vital.
complete story that they've lived through.
Pero nuestras
But
historias no son
our
solo
stories are not recreated, or they're not made up.
nosotros,
We
nuestra
our
formación es
school, or
con Teatro Cornerstone,
our
por
formation is
medio de la
through the
práctica
Cornerstone
de
Theater,
escribir historias
through
en el cual
historical stories in
las
which we
historias,
share
el
stories.
escritor
The writer
lee la
guides
conversación
the
y va
conversation
tomando nota
and
de la
takes notes
historia y
of
de
this real
cómo
stories.
cambiamos
And we do not change
todo.
words.
Él procura
He only tries like
dentro
to
de un
fix them
texto
like within a text
teatral
or a
proceder a la
theater
siguiente
book, to be able to continue on to the next phase, and to
y
which is to
tanto
review the
el
stories. And we
participante
give each of the participants freedom
expresa de cuál
that
es la
if their story is not appropriately described as shared, then they can suggest or make changes.
cómo él
Like
lo ha
the
escrito.
as far as how the writer has written it. So we do not impose.
Muy bien,
Very well.
y hemos
And
platicado
we've talked about productions, uh, theater productions where people go for an hour, hour and a half, right? Like the
Hay una pregunta
but
sobre
there is a question
el
regarding
teatro local,
the
macroteatro,
micro theaters.
¿qué piensas
Sometimes I think about
del teatro
regarding like the
también
field
requería
workers
ese tipo de
theater. Do you also do that type of theater? No. Uh, Funny enough, with all my respect to other theater groups, but something magical that occurred and that I appreciate when we organized as a labor's theater, it was not mentioned to us regarding existing theaters. It was never mentioned. Other theatrical groups that had been in existence or have been formed. And that was beautiful and magical because the coincidence was that a one summer through the uh, Artes Latinas NALA, they invited us to participate in a training, in a leadership training for a whole summer. And it was something magical because I precisely met one of the children of Mr. Valdez from the uh, Field Workers Theater. And while he started mentioning his theater group and his father and what he would do, and when he was speaking, I was like, oh, I would raise my hand, with my vast ignorance, and I would say, I'm sorry, it's incredible. And that's what we're doing. And I felt so so bad at that time, or so embarrassed that he might think that we were imitating him. But I just spontaneously and happy and very happy said, wow, we're doing what Teatro Campesino already did. And so the connection that I found is how the arts empower you, how art gives you that voice, that image, and it allows your path towards a fight and to push to fight, and how we achieved to have that same path as Teatro Campesino. And we didn't know anything about Teatro Campesino. And at that time, that's when I discovered that there were other theaters that had already done what we were doing. But it was magical, that connection that I found at that time and that we discovered without knowing that they existed. And at this time, we're not doing that type of theater, micro theater or street theater, out of scenic spaces or except this first participation, which we had on May 1st, which with the Labor's Theater. I love nature, and you might be able to notice that many of our projects are in open spaces because the Labor's Theater is distinguished in creating theatrical spaces and that where there aren't theater spaces. And so if they give us speakers in a location, then we'll do it. But if not, then we'll yell it out. But we provoke.
Sí, hay que siempre provocar
Yes,
para que
we always need to provoke, create that provocation. That's part of the power that the artistical expression gives us, the cultural, political expressions to be able to have
entonces
to provoke.
al cerrar
And so to close this evening, oh, there's another question. Um, there's a message here.
te conocí hace algunos
I met you a long time ago when I worked for the National Network for Laborers. I was helping you with casting and the extras for the movie Infiltrators. Do you remember this person? I don't have a question, but I wanted to say hello and that I would love to meet up again. Natalie Bautista. Oh, yes, I do remember the name. Yes, I don't remember uh, physically, but I do remember that name. Welcome, Natalie. Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be able to connect again. and that this beautiful universe has met us again. And so, with the theme of coincidence and meetings, let's close the night with the question of inclusion. What do you think at this time in the state that we're in politically in the country? What do you think regarding inclusion? And you and I talked about my idea about radical inclusion, and tell me your thoughts about that. Well, what comes to mind is how, even though we are excluded because of where we come from, and how they bottle us up, or how they dress us, or because of color, race, language, immigration status, and how art comes and breaks those barriers, and how the art comes to transform us and to transform reality. And and I'll repeat, no, and I'll say again that art has allowed us, theater has allowed us to form our community, our immigrant laborers community, where we use our voice and our likeness to educate ourselves and to empower ourselves. Thank you very much, Lorena, for sharing this evening with us here at MOLA at G.R.I.T. And with an open heart, I have an open heart for you, Lorena. Thank you very much. Thank you, Griselda. Thank you to all the participants, and we're at your service. Thank you, Mola. Thank you for those of you who have allowed to be able to share this space to share our experiences and our stories. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Um, yes, and Solimar is sharing a message. Yes, of course, Solimar, please. Thanks to all the audience, the participants, for meeting with us, this May 5th, as Solimar says, tell us, Solimar, what are your ideas of Cinco de Mayo this evening? I'm still learning about Cinco de Mayo. I confess I'm from Puerto Rico, and every year with all the people that I continue talking with, I learn something new. But having defined today what grit means and how the grit series will work, we can see Cinco de Mayo, that intent or that courage or that this community in Puebla had at that time. So it's so interesting how we can continue working and celebrating that, like for me, it's courage, or as you mentioned in the beginning. But well, thank you from Mola to Lorena, Griselda for this evening, which has been fantastic and fascinating. You're welcome. We're always with you, Solimar. I love being here with Mola and in these evenings of stories, of really connecting to the community and with people like Lorena. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Solimar. Thank you, Griselda. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to all of you who have stayed with us. We invite you to also continue participating in Mola's participation Mola at home digitally in the virtual environment, and we'll be opening to the public soon, slowly, but we will start that transition and in May we're also celebrating the festival that honors the Asian American community, the Pacific Islanders, and to also unite or meet us every Thursdays at 1 p.m. Well, we will have a program which is free of cost that we've been able to develop with the Japanese National American Museum and the Pacific Islander Ethnic Art Museum. We hope that you can join us and for the next G.R.I.T edition, which will be in the following months. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Go ahead.